Okay, we'll start the first question. The
Hmm.
meeting between Trump and Zelensky turned out into a fiasco for
Yeah.
the Ukrainian side. Was that Trump's spontaneous America First reaction or a pre planned action?
Well, I don't think that this was pre-planned. There's some people on the internet who believe that absolutely everything that they see has been somehow completely pre-planned in advance. I can't tell you one thing, that when major powers or diplomats meet, generally sort of in advance things have been discussed. You don't see something like the Russians and the Chinese meet randomly with zero plans, nothing discussed in advance. That doesn't happen. So to some extent, something was discussed in advance. But from what I understand, Zelensky sort of boarded his plane and told Washington, "I'm coming." And so I don't think that Trump had a very deep knowledge of what was going to be discussed. He just knew that probably that Zelensky had something to offer him, or that he wanted to get his ear, something of that nature. So I wouldn't say that this was some sort of like pro wrestling style media stunt. It was a real, let's just put it this way, real natural disagreement and not reality TV.
The clash at the White House is not something the average person is used to watching. At the end of the meeting, Donald Trump said it will be great television. In your opinion, is this a one off action or is this a new type of diplomacy being born before your eyes?
Well, Trump would know a thing or two about being successful on television. We can put it that way. But was this, again, I don't think that this was some sort of planned stunt or a form of pro wrestling or something of that nature, a fight that's fake. No, I think that they have a real and true disagreement. Was this a form of diplomacy? I don't know. But remember what Trump said over and over again about how you don't have any cards, you being Zelensky doesn't have any cards, and that Trump has all the cards. And if you want to have some of the cards, you have to be with Team Trump. Essentially, he said that in sort of a mafia movie style way of either you do what we tell you and you get something, or you go against me and you get nothing. That's essentially what Trump was saying. And I don't think that that was fake rhetoric. I think that that was very much the deal or way he views Zelensky. Especially if we even take a look at his comments about Zelensky's clothing, it only sort of further undermines this, let's just say, disdain towards Zelensky and seeing him as just some sort of puppet non actor.
You already mentioned the clothing of Zelensky. One of the reporters asked Zelensky why he didn't wear a suit to the meeting with the US president. It was said that the Americans have some problems with the fact that Zelensky didn't wear a suit as a sign of respect for the office. Why is this only now being brought to attention? If it's not such a little thing, what could this remark mean?
Well, I can tell you one thing, that after this event, if we want to look for some sort of conspiracy theory, already Senator Lindsey Graham, if we want to look for some sort of conspiracy theory in this event, take a look on Telegram. I can already read on my screen, Senator Lindsey Graham is calling for Zelensky's resignation. Wow, I did not see this one coming. Not I, but the person who wrote it. So we can see that after this, whether this was completely real or some elements of gamesmanship, Zelensky showed himself to be not a reliable partner, and he is now on the outs. So the thing about the clothing, Trump would know, as someone who's worked in television a lot, that you can often have a catered media persona that doesn't necessarily match real life. And I think for Trump, when you're talking about, thousands of people who've died, this is a real war. Russia and the United States have been close to pushing the nuclear button, sadly, due to events in Ukraine. And then Zelensky shows up as this catered media persona. Well, that's insulting to Trump. I think maybe not so much that was insulting to America, that some foreign leader shows up with some sort of persona. For example, leaders of Arab countries very often wear their traditional Arab clothing when they come to the United States, something that's very foreign, that represents a different religion. But no one sees that as being weird or strange, even though that's kind of a catered persona for the Arabic world, right? I think that Trump just sees Zelensky as being completely fake. The Saudi Arabians sort of wear robes and headdresses because they're really into their Arab ancestry, whereas Zelensky is this pseudo military leader who doesn't really know much about fighting a war, even after all these years of experience. So you see what I mean? When we talk about Zelensky's outfit, I think Trump just found that sort of personally insulting and another excuse to throw Zelensky under the bus. Because if Lindsey Graham has, after this interview, already thrown Zelensky under the bus, I'm assuming that the majority of Washington's political elites are going to do exactly the same thing.
US President Donald Trump keeps telling that he would like to end the conflict in the Ukraine as soon as possible. Yesterday he claimed that Zelensky wasn't ready for peace. How could the episode in the Oval Office affect the timing of the end of the conflict?
Well, if, Washington now is sending the signal that Zelensky is no longer adequate as the president. And remember, the Russians and the Americans, when they got together, both agreed that they have to have some sort of legitimate authority in Kiev to sign the eventual peace, agreement, whatever that's going to look like, right? And Zelensky is not that guy. So this just really sort of expedites this process of getting rid of Zelensky. There's even been some rumors, which I can't confirm for you, that there's going to be, at least there's going to be in theory, an impeachment hearing in Ukraine against Zelensky. Again, this could be some sort of rumors or wishful thinking on the internet. But this sort of complete destruction of the catered Zelensky persona that just happened could really, quicken things when it comes to finishing up the war.
Both the Washington Post and the New York Times report that Trump administration is considering ending all the ongoing shipments of military aid to Ukraine in response to Zelensky's behavior at the White House. How real is such kind of scenario? What consequences could be expected regarding the Ukraine?
Well, it could be very real. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't understand who follow politics, whether really actively or passively, is that unfortunately, people very randomly in power just do something good or bold or radical just for the sake of it. There always has to be some sort of excuse, some sort of casus belli, or however that's pronounced in Latin, right? Some motivation behind something. And up until this point, to some extent, I think Trump was forced to at least rhetorically say, well, we'll have to get the Ukrainians to sign off on this. But now that he's essentially, demonstrated via the media to the entirety of especially the United States that this guy isn't any sort of leader and is a non-actor, he's a clown, he's a nobody, well, then that really justifies Trump doing anything. He even mentioned over and over again how Zelensky's behavior has been insulting to the United States and how much money has been stolen, or maybe not stolen, vanished, that the United States has sent to them. So now, because of this, Trump has the sort of like justification, the necessary political theater needed in order to justify his actions. If he came into office day one and actually did freeze everything in Ukraine, then perhaps there'd be more of a reaction. But now the entire Washington elite can see that, that emperor there in Kiev has no clothes, and that this thing's going to get wrapped up. So it's effective political packaging of what Trump would want to do anyways. So it is very possible, yes, that they will cut support in the near future. They have the justification.
And the last question, European leaders expressed their further support for Zelensky. The European Union's top diplomat Kaja Kallas said that it had become clear that the free world needs a new leader. Could Germany, for example, take over that role? Is Europe capable of supporting the Ukraine without the USA?
Is Europe capable of supporting Ukraine without the USA? No. And also it would sort of depend on NATO, because if NATO breaks apart, then what does Europe have? Very little militarily. The English military is miniature. France's is not in good shape. And I don't think that many Germans are going to be willing to die on this cross for Zelensky, especially after this particular marketing stunt. So I really, on a military way of looking at things, can they support Zelensky and the war against Russia? No. If we also then were to get into some sort of more darker theoretical way of looking at things, without the United States involved. Let's just say the United States is then a non-actor. They wash their hands of the Ukraine crisis, but Europe continues. Well, how much of a nuclear threat is Europe really compared to Russia, or military threat? Because you have to remember that in Ukraine, there's been a special military operation. Why? Because the objective of the Russians entering Ukraine is to save the people there that have been horribly repressed. As in, they can't save people by blowing them up, like the United States tried to do in Iraq, right? They want to keep people alive. Well, if the EU, especially outside the context of NATO, without the United States, tries to essentially continue this proxy war against Russia, maybe the Russians won't consider it a proxy war. And Russia doesn't really have, let's just put it this way, when it comes to Paris and Berlin, there's no one there to protect. There's no one to defend with the soft kid gloves of this special military operation logic. That becomes a push-button war. And does Europe have the potential to even survive or present any sort of threat to the Russians in a push-button war? I would say probably not, but I am definitely not a military expert, and you might have to have someone come on your program who truly is.
Thanks a lot. We stay in contact, and I will send a link on our report.
Sure, I'm always happy to. I hope I wasn't too wordy today.
No, that was great. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.